Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another Tumbler tutorial. In this video, we are going to build on one of my past tutorials. If you guys remember this mega V-split tumbler that I made a while back, we are going to kind of take this design and reimagine it on this big boy. This is a 40-ounce skinny straight tumbler from Craft Haven, and we're going to kind of take the same idea and just do it a little bit differently, give it a little bit of a different look and theme and vibe, and hopefully it turns out good. If you guys enjoy the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my new videos, and let me know what you think of this design down below in the comments. As always, I'll have a full supply list in the description box for you, as well as links to all of my social media pages, my Facebook group, and my exclusive mentorship group, Made by MANIANDMAL Elite. If you'd like to join the Elite fam and get a whole bunch of extra content from me, you can sign up at madebymaniandmal.com/mbmmelite. Okay, I think that's it. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's go! What if that was like the Disney wand? I'm Mal, and you're watching my YouTube channel. All right, so like I said, we are going to use this tumbler as inspiration. Now, I made this tumbler using some pattern vinyl. We're not going to use pattern vinyl this time. We're going to do the entire cup with just glitter. And instead of doing all of these the same size like I did in this cup, all of these are relatively the same size, we're going to mix up the sizing and kind of make it a little bit more whimsical, I guess, is what we're looking for here. Just a little bit more varied. We're just gonna make it look really interesting and cool, hopefully. So let's get started. We're gonna start by mapping out our V design, like our biggest V split. We are gonna put a decal on this cup in the end. So I want to leave the top section larger than all of the other sections. We are going to start, my tumbler is already prepped. I probably should wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol though. Okay. To create the V section on our tumbler, this big section, we're gonna take a piece of plain computer paper and I'm going to cut it into a square. You guys have seen me do this before. So I'm basically gonna take my paper and I'm gonna fold it over so that we're left with a square. Or as even as possible. You guys know I struggle with even things. And I'm just gonna cut this first section by hand. With my paper trimmer, I'm gonna trim off the rest of this excess here. Kind of jaggeded up my edge. That's okay. And then I'm gonna cut right down the middle of that V so that we're left with just a triangle shape. My blade needs to be sharpened, I think. Oh well, we've got a rough triangle shape. It doesn't need to be perfect. This will be totally fine. We've got two, just pick whatever one is better, doesn't matter. And what we're gonna do from here is take this and we're going to wrap it around the top of our tumbler. And now depending on how large you want your section to be, you can bring this down however far you want it to go. So I'm gonna bring mine about down to there so that this entire section is going to be different colors, different V colors. And we're just using this as a template to place our tape. So it doesn't really matter how this lays. We just want it to be a guide for taping off our V section. So I've got this here and now I'm going to take my painter's tape. Doesn't matter what size tape you use. And I'm gonna line it up with this edge of the paper. Now it doesn't have to be perfect again, like I said. We will just lay it down here. Just like that, right up against that line. And I've got some excess on either side. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side of the triangle. Now that we've got that lined up, we can remove the paper. Now what we're gonna do is cut away. We're gonna cut away this excess here so that this top triangle is clean and open. Just like that. And then we'll do the same on the bottom. So I'm just following those lines where they overlap from the tape to help me cut off the excess and make sure everything comes to a point. So this is what we have right now. Now what we're going to do is go in and add all of our additional striping pieces. I'll bring you to the top down so that you can see what I'm doing a little better, and we will keep going. Okay, first thing I want to do is actually check and make sure that my points are the same. So I'm going to line this edge up here, and I'm going to take it straight up my cup. So we're on this side. And I just want to make sure that if I made this straight, it would meet up with that side. You can see that. So we're good. We're on direct opposite ends. That's perfect. So now what we're going to do is map out the rest of our design, the rest of our like mega V-split design. And on this one, I want to make all of the stripes different sizes. So I got this multi-size pack of painter's tape on Amazon. Comes with all of these different thicknesses of tape. And we're just going to kind of go random. We're just going to pick what we want and make it look all different. And then we'll glitter them and they'll all just look a little bit varied. I am not going to use these two super thin ones. I think that would just be more trouble than it's worth, honestly. So we're going to stick with these 4 sizes. So right off the bat, I'm going to go with this thin one. And I'm just going to follow the tape line that I created initially. So I'm going to lay that right there. Again, we're going to leave a little excess so that we can trim it and make it a perfect point. And then just repeat on the other side. So I'm just going to continue going all the way down the cup, alternating sizes until we've got basically the entire thing except for this upper section filled with tape. So now that we have gotten to a place where we're starting to overlap onto the bottom of the cup, I'm just going to keep going. On this cup here, I stopped each stripe, as you can see. And then I covered the bottom of the cup just with this one solid color. And I want to do it differently this time. So we're just going to continue these points kind of overlapping until we get to a place where we can't do that anymore. So we're just going to keep going as is, business as usual. But here's where we're at so far.
All right, after a very long taping process, we are ready to pick out the glitters we're going to use. We are going to use a lot of glitters on this tumbler. So I'm going for a pink, but also like coffee theme. So we're going to use a whole bunch of pinks. We're going to use some gold, some silver, a little bit of brown in there. And what I'm doing here is planning out what glitter is going to go where. Because I have so many pinks and different tones, I want to make sure that everything on the tumbler is really well balanced. So I just kind of went through and came up with an order that I liked. And now we're ready to get into our base painting.
So I've decided I want to do all of the odd numbers first. So we're going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, whatever. And I picked my colors based on that order. So all of my darker sided colors are going to go in the odd sections so that when we lay them down first, we can go in with all of our lighter colors and, glitter kind of over them. And we won't get that dark contamination into our lighter colors. So it kind of took me a while to figure out an order that I thought was going to go well and not look like dark light, kind of. So I wrote everything out. I've got my little list here that I'm going to reference, and we're going to just start peeling up our tape and base painting and glittering as we go. So the first section obviously is our biggest one. This is going to be Barbie. For the base paint for Barbie, we're going to use bubblegum. This is the Delta Creative Ceram Coat acrylic paint, my fave. I'm going to use this big fluffy brush to apply the paint, and I just want to go for a pretty solid color. I always use too much paint, so I'm going to try not to use too much this time. But I do want really nice full coverage. Because a Barbie has a little bit of like iridescent kind of to it. I don't know if I used that word correctly, but it will pick up the color of your base. So if your base is not well painted, it will show through Barbie. Some colors aren't like that, but Barbie has that kind of pickup to it. So I always try to do a good base when I use Barbie. Next for Goddess, we're going to use this rosy beige. It's just kind of a like natural color. For gold, it's always hard when you use acrylic paint because you don't really know what color to do. You could probably just put it directly on the silver. But just to help me remember what colors goes where, I'm going to base paint it. You don't have to though. For Jules, I'm going to use Moonlight Rose as our paint. Jules is kind of a bigger section, so I'm going to use a bigger brush. Now Jules is kind of like Goddess, it's super metallic, so if your base coat isn't perfect, that's totally fine. It's going to show up just fine. So don't worry about getting it perfect. You just want a little bit of that color coming through to help with coverage and all of that, but it doesn't need to be flawlessly painted. For French press, we're going to use raw sienna. The next color is Guy Diamond. We're not going to base coat that because it's silver, so we're just going to leave that as is. And then we've got Frenchy, and we're going to use the same base coat that we used for Jules, which is Moonlight Rose. So this is Guy Diamond, and this is going to be Frenchy, this tiny section here. All right, finally, we've got our color number 13, which is Wednesdays. And I think I'm just going to use the same color paint. So when I paint, I'm just going to be conscious of this line here because that is where Americano is going to go. If we get a little paint there, it's okay. Well, we're going to paint over it anyway, so no big deal. We just don't want to get glitter there when we do the gluing part. Pretty good for our first coat of paint. I'm going to do another coat on this little area. It's not very thick. Like better coverage than that. Okay, so here's where we are. I'm going to let this fully dry before we go in with our glue and glitter, and then we will do the rest of the colors.
So after those colors dried, I went in with a second coat of bubblegum for the Barbie section, and while that was drying, I went through and I did all of the rest of my colors. I went back and forth on what adhesive I wanted to use. I thought about using the epoxy method, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to stick with what I've been doing, which is using Mod Podge. I know I say every video I don't like Mod Podge, but honestly it's been working pretty well for me lately, so I'm kind of changing my tune. But anyway, I'm going to start, as always, with my darkest glitter color first. For me, that is French Press. So I'm going to do a thin layer of Mod Podge on that V and then go in with my glitter, tap off all of the excess, and then I'm going to take a chip brush and clean up all of that excess glitter from my cup where it's not supposed to be, and then we'll move on to the next color. So we're going to just continue going through, working from darkest to lightest. I kind of started like going down under French Press, like glittering all of those sections, and then I went back up to the top. I was trying to avoid that top Barbie area because that acrylic paint was still wet and I didn't want any glitter to get in that section, so I kind of worked down to the bottom and then went back up and did the rest of the top sections. But ideally you would work from your darkest to your lightest colors. And now for the most part, the colors I'm using here are fine cut glitters. I feel like they're just easier to work with when you're doing things like this. Chunky sometimes can get a little messy. I did throw a couple chunky glitters in here, but for the most part they're fine cuts. And now once I had 2 glittered sections, I went through and removed the tape that was in the middle of that section because I really don't want my Mod Podge and glitter to dry over that tape, and then when I peel it off later it will pull up some of the tape and glitter. That always happens to me, it seems, no matter how well I prep my tumblers. So I'm going to remove that tape as soon as possible. So once I've got those 2 sections that are opposite that piece of tape glittered, I'm going to go through and remove the tape to expose that section, and then I'll just keep working my way down. So finally, once I was done with all of those bottom little stripes, I went up to the top and I glittered that entire big section with Barbie. Remember, we're going to put a decal on this area, so this is our like big, I guess, main V section. So I'm going to glitter that with Barbie, remove that little piece of tape that's in between Barbie and Goddess, tap off any excess, and then I'm going to let this sit and dry overnight. I want these colors to be completely dry before I move on to my second round of painting and glittering. And I'm essentially going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go through with my acrylic paints, matching the paints the best I can to the glitter color that I'm going to put in those areas. The only thing different here is that we don't have that tape to kind of protect us from our messy painting. So I had to be really, really, really careful when I was painting in between these glittered sections. I didn't want to get any of that acrylic paint over my glitter. I'm really working hard here to keep my lines as crisp and as clean as I possibly can. So after that acrylic paint was dry, I went out and I spray sealed my glitter with a coat of the 2x clear gloss spray from Rust-Oleum. You can do this before you base paint your other sections. It doesn't matter, before or after is totally fine. I just wanted to get some sort of sealer on there before I went through and did my second round of glittering. Now for the second round, I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to start with my like darkest ish color first, and then I'm just going to go in with the plain Mod Podge. If you want to tint your Mod Podge, you totally can, but you don't have to. And I'm just going to go through, do a coat of Mod Podge, glitter that section, and then move on to the next section until our cup is completely covered. And also just a note, I am not waiting in between these glitter colors. I'm Mod Podging, glittering, cleaning my workstation up a little bit, getting ready for the next color, and then going right in with the Mod Podge and the next color. That's why I like to work from darkest to lightest, so that if there is any contamination, it's not as big of a deal. But Mod Podge dries really, really quickly, which makes it great for projects like this where you're using a lot of different glitter back to back to back. Okay, so here is what our cup looks like after all of the glitter has been applied. I'm really excited about how this is turning out. So I'm going to let this again dry overnight, and then I'm going to seal my glitter with 2 coats of the clear gloss spray from Rust-Oleum, and then I'm going to add 3 coats of epoxy. So I've got my coat sizes up on the screen for you so know how big each coat was. And after all 3 of those coats are dry, we're ready to go through and do all of our sanding. So I'm going to start with my Dremel up at the top rim, and I'm going to clean that up and expose a very thin line of stainless steel. That's going to help us form our final seal with our epoxy later. This does not need to be a big stainless steel section. You really need like a 1/16 of an inch. It does not need to be big. Then once I'm done with that, I'm going to go through with my sander here and just really sand the heck out of this cup. The next step for us is to add all of our striping and our decal. So I want to make sure that my cup is completely smooth before we go in and add any of that vinyl work. I really don't want to see any bumps or anything underneath my vinyl. So for the decal here, we're going to use a decal I created. This is a partly hand lettered SVG. I'll have it listed on my website and linked down below in the description box for you. It says fueled by coffee and sparkle. I've been very into the fueled by coffee and sayings lately. So if there's anything else you want to see, let me know and I'll make a decal for you. So anyway, we are going to do a double offset on this. For the top layer, I had to reverse weed. So I put my transfer tape on first, pulled the backing off, and then removed all of the excess vinyl. And I'm going to finish weeding the rest of that decal once it's on the tumbler. So I set that aside and decided to do my vinyl striping first. So I'm taking this silver like mirror chrome vinyl. This is from Tech Wrap Craft, and I'm going to apply this striping to every single one of those glitter V sections. I cut this at 0.08 inches wide, so each stripe is the exact same size, and I'm just going to follow those lines that we've established with our glitter, doing my best to keep them as straight as possible. And I'm just going to work my way through. I'm going to cut off all of the excess when they cross at the end to make sure my lines are really clean. And once we're done with this, we're going to go through with another layer of vinyl striping because I have to be extra. Okay, that took a very long time, but here's what our cup is looking like so far. So like I said, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add another layer of striping here. After I got these silver lines on, I thought I just need something to kind of break up all of this silver. So I decided to grab some holographic pink nail tape that I had. I got this in a huge pack on Amazon. And I'm going to put that right in the middle of each of those silver stripes. So now you can either not do this at all and just leave your stripes as normal. You can do this if you want to. Or when you're placing your striping down on your tumbler, your initial striping, you can use a bunch of different colors. So like think of like a geode. When you're outlining each of your sections, you go through and you use different color paint pens to outline your section. So if you wanted to, you could use a different color vinyl to outline each of your glitter sections and just give it a different look. Totally up to you. You don't even have to stripe out your sections at all if you don't want to. But I decided to do this with the nail tape and I'm really glad I did. I think it just adds that little bit of extra detail, breaks up all of those big thick silver chunks of vinyl, and I think just really pulled the whole design together. So I'm really glad I did that. And now we can move on to our decal. So for our decal, like I said, I'm going to do a double offset here. So I'm going to start with my very bottom layer. I'm using a holographic chrome vinyl. This is from Tech Wrap Craft as well. So I'm going to cut that out and I'm going to cut away all of the excess backing from around the decal so that I can make sure when I place this on my tumbler, I can get it as centered within that V as possible. I'm going to measure to make sure that it's centered and just place it in the best way I can. Typically I eyeball my decals, but I wanted to make sure that this was totally centered and as perfect as I could get it because of that V-split there. So once I had it in position, I pulled up the transfer tape, removed the backing, and then smoothed the vinyl onto the tumbler. And then I'm going to go in with my second layer, and I'm using a neon pink vinyl here. You guys, we're going really in with the pink. So I'm going to, of course, cut this into little pieces so that I can get it aligned as best as possible. If you want to lay your whole decal in one piece, go for it. I applaud you. For me, it's just easier to cut my decal up into pieces, go section by section. It just helps me get everything lined up a little bit better. And then finally, we're going to go in with our top layer. I'm using a soft pink vinyl for this top layer. And like I said earlier, I reverse weeded this. So I'm going to weed out all of the middle parts and everything of the words once the vinyl is stuck to the tumbler. Sometimes it's just easier to do it that way when you've got a lot of fine lines that were cut out. The vinyl will always stick better to your project versus the backing. So sticking it down first and giving it a really good like anchor will help you weed out a little better and you won't have vinyl like going all over the place. So I'm going to go through with my pen and weed out all of the details that are in this retro-y kind of fun font that I used for Fueled and Coffee. Just gives it a little bit of a cooler 3D look. And once I've got all of that placed on my tumbler, I'm going to seal the vinyl with a coat of polyacrylic. This was a lot of vinyl work we did with our striping and our decal, so I don't want any of it to lift. So I'm going to seal with polyacrylic. You can just get it at Walmart, and let that dry for about 30 minutes. Once the polyacrylic is totally dry, I'm going to go and add my final coats of epoxy. This cup took 3 final coats before it was all finished. Each of those coats was about 25 to 30 milliliters, so this girl has got a lot of epoxy on her, but I am really happy with how it turned out. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I had so much fun kind of reimagining this mega V-split design, and I hope you guys liked it as well. If you did, be sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, be sure you hit that subscribe button as well so you don't miss any of my new videos. I upload brand new Tumbler tutorials every Tuesday and Saturday. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you in my next one. Okay, love you. Bye.